Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this advanced English conversation between Greg and myself, Mary Daphne. It's so wonderful that you're joining us for this conversation. The idea behind this is to give you some opportunity to hear two native English speakers have a regular conversation. This is unscripted. This is the beauty of the ebbs and flow of conversation. So we're going to let it take us where it may. And right off the bat, I'll tell you today's subject, and Greg will hear it as well. We're going to be talking about, dun-dun-dun, drum roll, camping.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love camping.
Awesome. Okay, Greg, so I want to hear from you. Why do you love camping so much?
Well, first of all, I think we should differentiate between camping and backpacking.
Oh, okay. That's
right?
a good one.
So camping is sort of a catch-all for going out into nature,
Right.
and spending the night or multiple nights. Now, the question is, are you going out in a car with all your equipment in the car? And then you park the car and set up your tent next to the car. And so you're still in nature, right? You're at a campsite, but everything's sort of there with you.
Yeah.
Or do you put all your tent, sleeping bag, all your equipment on your back and you hike with it, right?
Right.
And that's backpacking.
Okay.
And so when you're going backpacking, you're camping, but you're doing it, carrying all your own stuff and going out further into nature. So regardless of those two,
Yeah.
what I love about camping in general, and I think you can say camping as a catch-all to include both of those.
Right.
But I wanted to make that distinction right off the bat. The reason I love it is that I just love spending time in nature, right? I find it very soothing, very peaceful, very fulfilling, right? We are always surrounded by electronics and buzzing and beeping and honking. So when you get out into the woods, into nature, it just feels like you're being washed in this sort of relaxing, soothing vibe that's very hard to get when you're stuck in urban life.
And the concept of forest bathing is something that pops up a lot, I think, nowadays with this understanding of the importance of wellness and how there are a lot of things that we can be doing, even if we live in a city, that might be good for us, for our health. And so forest bathing is one of those things. And especially with something like camping or backpacking, typically the surroundings are the woods or the forest.
Definitely. Yeah, no, forest bathing is such a cool term. I think it perfectly encapsulates what I love about camping, right?
Right.
It is like you're bathing in nature.
Yeah.
The same way, I know, you might think about taking an Epsom salt bath, right? That's, you have the warm water around you and the minerals soaking into your skin. That feels great. The same kind of thing happens being in nature and hearing nature sounds. And a lot of cultures, I know the Japanese and a lot of the Nordic cultures really take forest bathing very seriously, in the Scandinavians, because it is so cathartic. It's so salubrious.
And it's not necessarily that you're bathing as in submerging yourself in water like
Though you could.
might in a bath, though you could. But it's what Greg said, where you're really just surrounding yourself in nature. So if all of nature's, abundance of trees and plants and just verdant surroundings is a bathtub, you can think of it in that way.
Yeah.
But it's really this term that we have where you're completely surrounded by nature.
And immersed, right? We use these terms, they're often liquid-related terms, right? So and to immerse yourself in nature, right? The most strict sense of immersion is to dip something into a liquid, right?
Yeah.
So you immerse something in water. Here we're immersing ourselves in nature. So it's a sort of a metaphorical description of what's happening. But yeah, I really do think of it as like bathing the brain, right?
That's a good one,
You're
yeah.
bathing the brain with nature. So it's these sort of water terms where you're really just surrounding yourself and soaking yourself in it. And it's just, yeah, it's a great experience.
That's right. And so let's talk about camping, the first distinction that we made in the beginning. So camping, what would that typically entail? Can you just walk us through a typical camping experience for those of us who might not be experienced campers like myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is important if you want to go camping for the first time, you want to do it in baby steps, right? Your first camping experience probably shouldn't be trying to summit Everest, right? You're probably better off starting with the traditional, what we call car camping, right? So car camping is when you get all your equipment and your food and you pack it into a car. So you have a lot of space because you have the trunk of your car. You can also pack a lot of heavier stuff, right? Like heavier types of foods and fuels and so forth. So what are you going to pack, right? You're going to want a tent. You need something over your head, right, when you're going to sleep.
That's right.
You're going to want a sleeping bag to keep you warm, right? A sleeping bag is, replacing covers, right? So you get into a sleeping bag, it's like a warm cocoon and it surrounds you. And it's deceiving because most people think, oh, it's summer, it's going to be hot. But most people haven't ever slept outside. And what you realize is it's a lot colder outside than it is in your house, even if you aren't turning on the heat, because your house, insulates and holds heat throughout the night. Whereas a tent, or if you're sleeping right under the stars, there's nothing between you and the sky. And so it can get pretty chilly pretty quickly. So make sure to bring a warm sleeping bag, warmer than you think you might need.
Right.
And then you also need the basics in terms of protective clothing, right? It could rain, so you want to have a rain jacket. Mm-hmm. It, again, could get chilly, so make sure that even if it's summer, bring some sort of pants. So when you're there at camp, your legs are warm, and if there's bugs, your legs are covered.
I was going to say bug protection. That's a big one because it might not be something you think about for the warmer temperatures or cooler temperatures, but the bug situation can be crazy sometimes.
Totally. And then you have wool socks. You should always have wool socks to keep your feet warm and, again, to protect yourself from bugs.
Right.
And if you are planning to do some hiking, I always recommend that you take 2 pairs of shoes. One are your hiking shoes that you go out and do a hike, even if it's a short hike around the area. And then you have some camp sandals, right? Something easy to slip on, something where your feet can breathe and it's more comfortable.
Right.
And you can wear those around camp with your wool socks.
Right. So in terms of camp, how do we define camp? Is camp a place that we go to? Is it a place where we set up our own tent? What kind of situation are we looking at in terms of the sleeping arrangements?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, let's step back a little bit. When you go to a car camping site, you typically these camping sites are going to be either in a field,
right,
in a big open grassy field, or they could be set inside the woods. And so you'll have like a gravel path that you drive in, right? You'll get off the highway and drive onto one of these things, and you'll have a gravel path that you'll drive along.
Yeah.
And then along the gravel path, well, first you'll check in, right? And you register and you say, here's, our reservation for our campsite.
A campsite.
Yeah, you can book these online. You can book them over the phone. Often they'll just have space if it's in an off month, right? It's not, in the summer, you're gonna have to probably book in advance.
Right.
But other places you can just show up. Anyway, so you check in.
Yep.
And then you keep going along the gravel path, and you'll start to see little patches of ground, bare earth, right? Where enough space to park a car and set up a tent.
Right.
And so the idea is when you get into your reserve space, it'll have a little sign on it.
Your patch of grass.
Your patch of grass or dirt. It'll say, like number 23 or, fire log site, right? They'll have little fun little names. Yeah, The deer site. Okay, so you get to your site, and that's when you can start to unpack, right? You can set up your tent on the little earth patch, try and look for like a nice flat area because you don't want to be sleeping at an angle, right?
Right.
And you don't want big roots or rocks under you. And so, you set up your tent, and then typically they also have a fire pit, right? And I love fire pits because a fire pit is where you can set up your fire, right? You collect some sticks, logs, and you build a fire.
Right. And what if you don't know how to build a fire? Is there anyone there on the campsite to assist you, or you would hope that the people that you're with on this camping adventure are hopefully experienced campers that they could help? Because I know that you know how to, build a fire, but start a fire, but I don't know that everyone has that outdoorsy knowledge.
No, that's a good point. And fire safety is very, very important,
Yes.
particularly during the summer when
Yes.
the ground, the foliage, the trees are all very
Right,
dry.
It might be hot out.
Yeah, so knowing how to build a fire is really important. If you've never done it before and you don't have anyone there who has, your best bet is to see, you can check with the management to see if there's a ranger who can help build one for you.
Right.
Show
So
you.
a park ranger in the U.S., we have people who are, it's a profession to be a park ranger. Greg could probably speak to it. There are people who are part of the campsite or the preserve or the park, the national park, for example, and they are there to help you if you need something. They are well versed in how to build a fire, doing, any sort of giving any assistance to campers or
Outdoor safety in general.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're very experienced and they're
Yeah.
super handy to have around, but they're not always there.
Right.
You can also go onto YouTube, right, and look up some tutorials on how to do it.
Yeah.
But the key here is if you're going to make, for the first fire you make, you want to make it small. And you want to make sure there's no flammable stuff in the area, right?
Right.
So you have your fire pit. There should be a ring of rocks around it to contain the fire. And then past that ring of rocks, you want to make sure there's at least 10 feet of bare earth in
wow.
space, right?
Wow.
And you also want to make sure above you there aren't any trees hanging over,
Oh, yeah,
right?
good
Because sometimes if the fire gets hot, it can light the leaves of the trees hanging above.
Oh my goodness.
So you have to you just want a lot of space and start small.
Yeah.
And once you get the hang of it, after a few fires, you start to sort of get a sense of, what's safe and what's appropriate. You can scale it up.
Right. And then what about food? What do people do about food? Because you said to bring your food.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a moment.
You do have to bring food. But before we even touch on food, the
Yeah.
more important thing to bring is water. Right?
Yes.
Because we can go days, weeks, even months without food. We can only go a couple days,
Yeah.
a matter of hours without water before we die.
Yeah.
Right? So water is the most important thing
It's
to bring.
true. And water is also really heavy. I don't know about you, but I mean, when we've gone on hikes, I remember just sometimes I'd bring like 3 liters of water, and that was pretty heavy. And, and I'd carry it on my person, and I'd just be drinking the water throughout the day with the Camelback, which is this container of water, which is basically like a silicone bag,
It's a water pouch.
a water pouch, and you have a nice long like hose essentially, and you just have that connected to your backpack, and you don't even have to stop, open your bag, take out your water bottle, remove the other things that are in the way of your water bottle. You just simply take the spigot out,
And drink from the
twist
hose.
it, drink from the hose, and it's delightful.
Yeah, really handy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to bring
water.
water and bring way more water than you think you need, right?
Wow.
Just tons of water. For each person you should have, I'd have to look up what the number is. I generally always have a sense how much I'm going to drink.
Yeah.
But you want a good amount, right? Like they have
Maybe
those 5-liter
A
containers.
gallon for each person, I
Yeah,
would imagine.
At least, yeah. I would say really like one of those
Per day,
5 liters per
I'm
day, per day,
thinking.
per
Yeah,
day. Yeah. At least 1 5-liter jug per person.
Yeah.
And you can also look at your campsite. Is it close to water?
Right.
Like a stream or a
stream.
lake? If so, then you can get more water from the stream or lake.
But you have to make sure it's drinking water, like drinkable or potable water, because otherwise you just don't know the safety of
Yes.
the water, and that's very important.
You should assume always, no matter where you are, that the water is actually not safe,
yeah.
right? And
Unless
so,
there's a sign.
even if there's a sign,
Really?
unless it's coming out of a pipe that says drinking water, right?
Oh.
But if they say, oh, this stream is safe to drink from, well, you don't know, right? You don't
Yeah.
know if there was a dead animal upstream or
Yeah.
a beaver with giardia, right? There can be all kinds of microbes in there that can't be controlled.
For sure.
And so it's always best practice if you're getting water from nature to bring some iodine, or the easiest little iodine tablets. You can easily buy them on
Right.
Amazon.
And so what does that do?
And the iodine just kills all the microbes.
Right.
So you just drop a tablet into your water, let it sit for 30 minutes, and then you can drink it.
Does it taste like water, or does it taste like it's water with
It tastes
iodine?
a little sulfury, like almost,
Really?
yeah, like if you, the smell of boiled eggs, if you had that in water,
Oh, sure.
it's a little bit that.
Okay.
And it can stain things, so be careful.
Oh, yeah.
But look, if you need to drink water.
If you need water, you need water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also get pumps, which are a little heavier, and that's probably recommended if you have a car because the weight doesn't matter as much. So you bring a pump, and then you could just pump the water, and you don't need to use chemicals.
Right. That's good. Now we can get to the food.
Now we can talk about food.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, a lot of the food that you make while you're camping also requires water,
Yes.
typically purified water. And so you have to factor in that with your water
Yeah,
equation. But
right.
in terms of food, I mean, the sky is really the limit, right? In terms of how complicated you want to get. Just remember, you don't have a kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at best, you're going to have a table that you can lay out with some basic cutlery, but you're not going to have a sink. You're not going to have a dishwasher.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have all your pots and pans. So you want to be strategic about what you're cooking. You want stuff that's relatively easy to put together.
Yeah.
That doesn't require too much, complex machinery.
Right.
Things I love to do, right? Rice-based stuff. It's very easy to boil rice.
Right.
Beans, refried beans, very easy to do. Stuff that's dense and caloric, and that you can add stuff easily to. So couscous is another one.
Yep.
And then things like cheese that you can
Right.
toss into this, right?
Right.
Bricks of cheese, salami,
Yes.
right? These are all things that are easy to transport.
Yeah.
Peanut butter works very well camping.
Peanut butter is always a good one.
Yeah.
We also have things like trail mix, which is, I don't know that I've seen it really outside of the US, to be honest, but it's a wonderful thing. A lot of people use it when they're on hikes or camping or even just as a snack food. It's essentially a variety, a medley of nuts and maybe even some dried fruit. And they're different assortments. So you can get one that has like pumpkin seeds and dates and figs and things like that. Or you can, make your own sunflower seeds. I mean, the sky's the limit with that too, because you can just pick and choose your favorite seeds and nuts and dried fruits. And those, like you said, are calorically dense. But, you could carry a big bag with you and only a handful would help you sort of get through that meal, or if you need some sustenance.
Yeah, it keeps your energy levels very, very
Some
level.
energy.
Nuts and seeds are probably
a good one.
the best thing that you can bring.
Yeah.
Alongside, again, I think salami works really well.
Yep.
If you're
Cheese,
into
like
eating
you
meat.
said, too.
Cheese. The only thing with cheese is after a day,
Melting.
it can start to get like a little sweaty,
Right.
and funky.
Right.
So make sure if you're gonna bring cheese, eat that sooner rather than
Yeah.
later.
And then what about making sure the animals don't, not attracting their
Yeah.
attention? 1, 2, you don't want animals near your, and I'm talking about like bears and maybe wolves and things like that.
You're not gonna see any wolves.
You're not going to see
You're not
wolves.
gonna see wolves.
Okay.
But depending where you go,
Yeah.
you may see bears.
Bears.
And bears don't like to interact with people, but they do really like to eat food. And they have good noses.
Yeah.
And they also know that camping sites have food typically.
Right. They associate one with the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Wherever there are humans, there's bound to be food.
Exactly. And you've probably seen, videos of bears breaking into trash cans and stuff. They're pretty nosy when it gets to food.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to be, but bears actually aren't even your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is going to be squirrels and chipmunks.
Right.
Right? These little rodents that can get everywhere. And they can bite through things and you don't even notice them because they're so small and quiet. So those are going to be a real problem. So the key here is that you want to keep your food always in a tight container, right? Something hard and sealed.
That you can seal.
You literally have things called bear containers.
Oh, wow. What
right?
does
They're
that
these-
look like?
There's these plastic polyurethane containers, right? Basically indestructible. And you put your stuff in and seal it, and then, nothing can get in.
Wow.
A lot of campsites actually have bear containers built into the campsite.
Oh, that's
Which
good.
are more like big chests.
Okay.
And you could just put everything in there and lock it up.
That's good.
And those are really good. And then if you don't have either of those, you want to go light, you can use what are called bear bags.
Okay.
And bear bags are a soft bag that you stuff all your stuff in, right? You can even use like a sleeping bag stuff sack. You put all your stuff in. And then you tie it to a long piece of rope. And you launch the end of the rope over a tall branch on a tree, right? That pokes way out. And then you can lift the bag up, right? And you basically have the bag dangling in the air.
Right.
It can't be too close to the branch, though, because you don't want squirrels to be able to jump down to it.
That's right.
And obviously, it can't be too close to the ground because you don't want a bear to reach up and swipe it. So you need something that's probably at least 20 feet high, and then you pull it up like 12 or 14 feet, just so that you have enough space to clear all those threats. And that's a bear bag.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So how long have you been camping?
Well, lately I haven't been doing much camping at all, so
Yeah.
I miss it. But when I was younger, I would camp multiple times a year.
Wow.
And during summers, I would camp most of the summer.
Yeah.
A few friends and I would just, go out. We would go with groups, with trips, through organizations and by ourselves. And I even have a friend who hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. So he camped in the woods for nearly 4 months straight. Actually, probably over 4 months straight.
Yeah.
Hiking over 2,500 miles, a huge, huge distance, all the way from Bangor, or where is it? I think it's Bangor, Maine's up in Maine, all the way down to Georgia.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say that camping is something that Americans typically like to do? I mean, of course, we're making a sweeping generalization either way, that whether Americans like camping or don't like camping. What would you say, typically speaking, in terms of Americans' relationship to camping? Is it something that
I think it's very
would
positive.
do?
Yeah. Americans, and I think in general, it's not just America.
Yeah.
It's really around the world.
around the world?
There's something about camping that's it feels like it's bringing you back to your humanistic roots, right? It's
Yeah,
tribal.
and I would say in my experience, mostly hiking, but there's very much of an overlap there. Just the difference being that you'd go home or you'd stay maybe in a log cabin or a hotel or a friend's place if you're with friends. That you are it's so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I find, talking about the American population broadly, you will find that there's a part of the population that's very outdoorsy, right?
Yes.
Some of
Yes.
the most aggressive and talented outdoorsmen in the world are Americans.
Yeah.
And then you have a much bigger group of just campers, right? If you go camping in the U.S.,
Yeah.
you're very likely to encounter other campers,
Right.
because there's a lot of them. But as
Definitely.
a total percentage of the population,
Yeah.
it's probably still not that big, right? People who camp in general, I would guess, make up maybe 40% of the total population.
I would say so too. I was going to say maybe 50-50. I mean, I'm someone who loves being outdoors, but I'm not much of a camper.
Right.
I grew up in cities, have been in cities most of my life thus far. And so the opportunity to camp is not really that, abundant.
Yeah.
But, I feel like the friends that I have, for example, in Colorado, every weekend they're doing the car camping. And now they have a baby and they're taking their baby car camping. So it really, I think, is very much also state dependent. If you're in a state such as Colorado with beautiful outdoors that people really take advantage of, then people are going to probably be camping as one of the outdoor activities that they do.
Yeah, I would even say it's city dependent, right? Because
Yeah.
within a state, even New York has phenomenal camping. Like New York City, obviously, it's hard to get to camping. You have to
Yeah.
get on a train or do a long drive.
Yes.
But if you live in the upstate New York area,
Right.
there's
It's true.
beautiful camping. That's actually where I learned to camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really does. I agree. It has to do with the proximity of your home to great camping in the area.
Right. So we talked a lot about what equipment to bring when you're camping. What do you suggest to anyone out there who wants to start camping or has an interest in camping? What are some of the first things that they can do to be able to go camping? What would you say?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is make sure to find a friend who has gone camping, right?
Yeah.
The best thing to do is to go with someone who knows and loves camping because they'll just make it so much easier for you. They'll show you, all the things to look out for, and it'll just be a much more relaxed experience. But if you're really brave and you don't know anyone who likes to camp, I would say going onto YouTube and just, searching something like camping for the first time,
Yeah.
right? Watch a few different videos, see what people have to say about it, and start to put together a gear list
Yes.
of the things you're going to need. do some planning around looking around your area. Where's the closest camping site to you? And I would start with like a car camping or a campsite that's very close to civilization, just so that if something goes wrong, it's very easy for you to get help.
Right.
Start simple, start small, just do one night. Try to do it with some friends. In fact, if it's your first time, I would insist you do it with at least one other person.
Yeah.
It's just good to have more than one person there for safety reasons. And yeah, have fun. That's the most important thing. You know, be prepared to have, be prepared for it to be a challenge.
Yes.
Right? It's a lot about mindset, having an open mind, embracing the unexpected things that will happen. It'll probably rain on you.
Yeah.
You're probably, going to have an animal who takes some of your food. You're probably going to get dirty. Just expect all these things, and it's going to be uncomfortable for the first time when you're sleeping. So just expecting the unexpected, and getting in that mindset of no matter how challenging this is, I'm going to have fun and learn from it. If you go in with that mindset, I think you're in great shape.
I would totally agree with all of that, especially as someone who has been on a couple of camping trips, but not nearly as many as you. And they've been sort of more of like a daytime camping. I would also say maybe start with hiking, where you're kind of having a similar experience, but like I said before, you go home or you just stay in a bed or a log cabin, something like that. You're not necessarily staying in a tent or a sleeping bag, to sort of acclimate to this idea of being outdoors for several hours and really enjoying it. I think that would be also a good way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like even before you get to staying the night, just get comfortable being in nature, right? Yeah, just spend the day. Just spend some time learning, getting comfortable in a forest and not having your phone handy, things like that.
Yeah.
That's a great way to get started.
And then my last question is, what would you say is one of the biggest lessons you've learned from camping?
Biggest lessons. I mean, the lesson that I learn every time, and it never gets old, is that, I am not the center of the world, right?
Right.
It's very easy when we're in the city and in our jobs to just only be thinking about ourselves and everything that's going wrong, everything that's going right, all our ambitions and aspirations, blah, blah, blah. When you get out into the woods, you sort of dissolve, the sense of self dissolves into this bigger tapestry of nature. And that's such an important lesson. And that's part of what makes it so comforting. Yeah. Because your sense of stress and anxiety melts away, right?
Right.
Because you individually don't really matter. You start to realize like nature's so much bigger than just you. You're just a tiny speck. Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Once it's a mindset, right? This is like I don't know if it's a Buddhist mindset, but a lot of religions actually get to this, right? There's something other than you
dissolving
that's
the
much
ego.
bigger, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, obviously, you have priorities and obligations and so forth.
Yeah.
But you can suspend all that, and none of it really matters at that moment.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's about that moment.
It's that moment,
being
right.
free from care.
Right.
And it's very hard to experience that
Yeah.
in the modern urban world.
Right.
It's very easy to experience that in nature, and I think it's a great lesson that I encourage everyone to expose themselves to at least once.
I would agree with that, and that also, it kind of has you change your perspective on things. For example, if it's a problem that you might be dealing with at work or at school, you shift focus for a moment, you get some more perspective, you get that bird's eye view, simply because you might not just be ruminating over it all day, and also you're surrounded by the beauty that is our world, and you also might be with people who really lift your spirits as well. So that combination of being in nature and with people that you enjoy, whose company you enjoy, can really get you out of a mood that you might be in.
Great point.
And then I would also say the resilience.
Yep.
Right? Just finding a way to overcome any obstacle.
Learning how to be adaptable and flexible and resourceful, definitely.
Yeah. So that was really fun learning all about camping.
Yeah.
You shared a lot of amazing...
Gosh, I could talk all day about it.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like it. So hopefully you get to go on a nice camping adventure soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, maybe. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
And, I think it's like what you said, the baby steps, right? If you want to try something, you try it with keeping those steps in mind.
You do it progressively. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have experienced camping, let us know in the comments down below. And also, if you're interested in camping, let us know what steps you're going to take to get yourself into the mindset of forest bathing, being in nature, having that therapeutic experience of just surrounding yourself and immersing yourself in nature.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we'll see you in the next advanced English lesson where we're going to continue advancing your English together. Until then, keep up the awesome work, and we will see you very soon.